OpenAI just turned their coding assistant into an operating system for your entire computer. Okay, so here's what actually happened on April 16th. OpenAI shipped a massive update to Codex, and the title they use tells you everything you need to know. Codex for almost everything. Not Codex for code, not Codex for developers. Almost everything. 3 million people use this thing every single week, and that number grew 50% in under a month. The update adds computer use, meaning Codex can now operate your Mac apps in the background while you do other work. It adds an in-app browser where you can point at a web page and say, "Fix this." It adds image generation, memory that persists across sessions, and over 90 new plugins connecting it to tools like Jira, GitLab, Circle CI, and the full Microsoft suite. And if you're a developer, it can now SSH into your remote servers. Let me put some numbers on this so you can feel the scale. 3 million weekly active users, up from 2 million just weeks earlier. Over 90 new plugins shipping on day one. $122 billion raised just last month. An evaluation trajectory pointed straight at $850 billion. This is the most money that has ever been behind a single developer tool. The interesting part isn't the money, though, it's the product direction. OpenAI is clearly betting that the future of Codex is not writing code for you. It's being the thing that sits between you and every tool you use. Let me walk you through the actual announcement. Here's the OpenAI blog post itself, published April 16th. Right at the top, you've got the headline, Codex for almost everything, with that parenthetical almost doing a lot of heavy lifting. Below that is the lead paragraph where they lay out the thesis. 3 million developers use Codex every week, and this update makes it a more powerful partner across the full software development lifecycle. Scroll down and you hit the first major section, Enhancing Codex Beyond Coding, where they describe computer use, the in-app browser, and image generation. Then there's the section on bringing tools to the software development flow, which covers the 90-plus plugins, GitHub PR review, multiple terminal tabs, and the new project summary pane. Further down, they talk about carrying threads over time, which is the memory and scheduling piece. And near the bottom is the availability section and a what's next preview. Before we go feature by feature, let me explain why this update actually matters and why it's not just a product refresh. Until now, Codex was basically a really good pair programmer. You'd open a chat, describe what you needed, and it would write code or review a pull request. Useful, but narrow. What OpenAI shipped on the 16th is fundamentally different. They've turned Codex into a persistent agent that can see your screen, click buttons inside your Mac apps, browse the web on its own, remember what you told it last week, and wake itself up on a schedule to do recurring work. The closest analogy isn't a better copilot. It's closer to what Apple was trying to do with Siri, but with an actual language model underneath. And the RPA market noticed, because legacy automation stocks dropped at the open the next morning. Here's the technical spec sheet if you want the real numbers. GPT 5.4 is the primary model underneath since March 5th. The context window is 200,000 tokens for Codex proper. On SWE Pro, the coding benchmark that actually matters, Codex scores 56.8% versus Claude Code at 55.4%. And on Terminal Bench 2.0, which tests real-world terminal workflows, Codex is at 77.3 compared to Claude Code's 65.4. That terminal benchmark gap is significant. Let's go through what actually shipped, because there's a lot and some of it is genuinely impressive. First is computer use. Codex can now operate macOS apps visually in the background, clicking buttons, filling forms, navigating menus, while you keep working in another window. This is the feature that spooked the RPA vendors, because it means you don't need purpose-built integrations for every single app anymore. Second is the in-app browser. You can open any public page inside Codex, highlight something on the rendered page, and say fix this or explain this. It's not just a URL fetch, you're literally commenting on the live page. Third is image generation using GPT Image 1.5. You can generate mockups, UI prototypes, concept art, and game assets, all inside the same conversation where you're writing code. And fourth is memory, which is in preview right now. Codex remembers your preferences, your coding conventions, and your edit history across sessions, so you stop repeating yourself every time you open a new thread. Now the developer-facing features, which honestly might matter more for the people watching this channel. 90-plus new plugins ship out of the box connecting Codex to Atlassian Rovo, Circle CI, CodeRabbit, GitLab Issues, Render, and the full Microsoft suite. The plugin architecture is interesting because it combines three things: traditional app integrations, the skills system where you write reusable skill.md instruction files, and MCP servers for tool calling. Speaking of skills, you can now share them across your team and invoke them with $.skill_name syntax. There's also SSH access to remote dev boxes in alpha, letting Codex connect to your cloud development environment over a secure tunnel. And the automations feature lets you schedule Codex to wake up and do recurring work, things like issue triage, CI failure summaries, or daily release briefs without you reprompting. Under the hood, here's how the architecture actually works. The primary model is GPT 5.4, which became the default on March 5th. There's also GPT 5.4 Mini for sub-agent routing, which uses only 30% of the full model's quota, meaning you can fan out cheaper agents for parallel tasks. The desktop app runs natively on macOS and Windows. The CLI has 3 approval modes called Suggest, Auto Edit, and Full Auto, depending on how much autonomy you want to give it. And there's a VS Code extension that can delegate tasks to the cloud. For security, they shipped something called Aardvark, which generates editable threat models from your repo structure, finds vulnerabilities with project-level context, and validates findings in a sandbox. In pre-release scans, Aardvark found 792 critical vulnerabilities and over 10,000 high-severity issues across public repos. Getting started is straightforward whether you want the desktop app or the command line. The desktop app is a direct download from openai.com/codex, available on Mac and Windows. You sign in with your ChatGPT account, and you're immediately in. For the CLI, you install it globally with npm, run Codex in your terminal, and you get the same agent capabilities from the command line. The CLI is actually open source on GitHub, and it supports not just OpenAI models, but also Allama, LM Studio, and OpenRouter, so you can point it at whatever backend you want. Here's the part most people missed in the noise. On March 19th, OpenAI announced they're merging ChatGPT, Codex, and the Atlas browser into one unified desktop superapp. Fidji Simo, who's the CEO of applications at OpenAI, is leading the effort, and Greg Brockman is overseeing the product overhaul. The vision is that you stop switching between ChatGPT for chat, Codex for code, and a browser for everything else. It all becomes one surface. The Atlas browser already has an agent mode that can fill out forms, log into accounts, and do multi-step web research autonomously. When that merges with Codex's coding abilities and computer use, you're looking at a single agent that can do your research, write your code, test it in a browser, deploy it, and check back tomorrow to see if the deploy went clean. So who should actually care about this, and who's probably fine waiting? If you're a solo developer or a small team shipping fast, the combination of coding, computer use, and 90+ integrations in one tool is genuinely compelling because it collapses your workflow from 5 apps down to 1. If you run any kind of repetitive operations work, the automations feature is the one to watch, because scheduled agents that can triage issues or summarize CI failures without being prompted is real leverage. If you build enterprise software, the Aardvark security scanner is worth evaluating even if you ignore everything else, because automated threat modeling that actually validates findings in a sandbox is something most teams would pay real money for. But if you're already deep into Claude Code or Cursor and your workflow is humming, there's no urgent reason to switch. The benchmarks are close enough that personal preference matters more than the numbers. Okay, let's be honest about what's wrong with this picture. OpenAI still hasn't published detailed docs on their sandboxing architecture or the guardrails governing agent behavior, which matters a lot if you work in a regulated industry. Computer use is macOS only right now, and EU and UK users don't even get the full feature set yet. Memory is in preview, not production. SSH is alpha. And the Hacker News thread had a very good point, that giving an agent full access to your system turns every text file into a potential threat vector, and nobody has fully thought through what that means for security. But for everything that's a little half-baked, the product trajectory is real. 3 million users a week, 50% monthly growth, $122 billion in funding, and a clear strategy to become the default operating layer for software work. If you build software in 2026 and you haven't at least tested what Codex can do now, you should probably fix that this weekend. Links in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you tomorrow.